So we're going to go through a case in a little bit, but before we do that, I just want to go over the concept. We've talked about the concept of vital force before, and that's in Castro's book on page 14. You should become more familiar with the vital force again. It's basically the body's healing energy, the body's ability to heal, and that's what homeopathy is doing, is it's helping to boost or balance the vital force so that the body can heal itself better. You'll come across in your readings, if you read through these books, the concept of miasms. My advice to you on these is to ignore them. Okay, it's a little bit of a controversial subject, and different homeopaths will have different opinions. Some really rely on the concept and the theory of miasms heavily, and others dismiss it completely. It's something for the more advanced student to study, but in your case, I think it's going to be confusing and misleading, and I would just recommend avoiding any sort of consideration of miasms at all. Okay, in my opinion, it's more theoretical than it you can do, though. Again, this is more for a professional homeopath, but if you have a severe aggravation or severe proving that's not getting better, then there are remedies that can be prescribed to act as antidotes to the first remedy. And that is something that sometimes, rarely, but sometimes needs to be done. So if something like that happens, you should call a professional homeopath. It's not common, but it can happen. Usually if in either a very sensitive patient or someone who does not understand the concepts of homeopathy. The second potential danger in homeopathy is that you can confuse the symptom picture. If you take too many different remedies within a short period of time, we call it like chasing symptoms. So you have one symptom, so you take a remedy for that, but then another symptom comes up, so you take a different remedy for that. Now another symptom comes up, and you take a different remedy for that. If you're taking too many at once, now all of a sudden the natural state of the condition or the disease can be sort of confused, and you no longer have a clear picture of the actual condition, and so it makes it difficult to prescribe for. So you're not going to necessarily harm the patient per se, but it's going to make it difficult to treat, and the person's not going to get better. The other thing, now this is not, again, it's not really a danger, but it's kind of a factor you need to be aware of, is the concept of suppression. So with a homeopathic remedy, you can have, let's say you have two different symptoms, low back pain and eczema. So you take one remedy and the low back pain gets better, but the eczema gets worse. That's actually a typical case scenario, where when you have a deeper symptom and then a more superficial symptom, if you start treating the deeper symptom first, oftentimes the superficial symptom will get worse. So oftentimes skin conditions get worse in the beginning of treatment, and that's actually a good sign. Typically, if you just leave it alone, the skin symptoms will get better, and in this case, the back pain will get better as well. But the danger here is if you take a remedy for to treat someone who has back pain, and the back pain gets better, but the eczema gets worse, as long as the eczema is worse, you want to hold off on repeating the remedy again. Because if you keep repeating the remedy, what you can do is take a mild case of eczema and make it really severe, which again is not a good case scenario. So in certain cases where it's a type of aggravation, again, you don't want to keep taking the remedy while you're having an aggravation, even though you may have started treatment for back pain and not for the eczema. It doesn't matter. You have to recognize that if there's an aggravation in any body part, if it has the potential to get kind of escalated, you want to hold off and wait. Any questions on this stuff so far?
So you should just wait until after the eczema goes down.
Yeah, maybe not. You want to wait until the eczema goes down. Maybe not wait until it's gone completely, but at least to it's a level where it's very mild. So if the eczema was still pretty bad, but the back pain started to get worse. Hopefully by the time the back pain starts to get significantly worse, the eczema is now mild enough that you can risk making it just a little bit worse. And sometimes it's a little bit of a trade-off in the beginnings of treatment. Eventually though, if you stick with it, the skin condition will resolve, and the chief complaint will continue to get better. Another thing to keep in mind is when to prescribe and when not to. So as a lay person, a non-professional homeopath, it's best to err on the side of caution. And if you feel uncomfortable treating something, that's the best rule of thumb to suggest that you shouldn't. So if you feel uncomfortable treating it by yourself, call a professional. If you feel comfortable with it, it's fine. For a simple common cold without fever, you should feel pretty comfortable treating it. If all of a sudden the patient starts to develop a higher fever and the remedy that you're giving isn't helping, well, that's when you want to get more professional help. So in the cases of fever, of severe life-threatening conditions, times when you think about calling 911, those kinds of instances, you should probably refrain from prescribing until you have more experience doing so. That said, if someone has a horrible accident and you call 911, between the time you call 911 and the time they get there, you could certainly give something like arnica. You're not going to harm the patient by doing that. You're only going to make their outcome better. It's not like, in the case of arnica, for example, for acute injury, it's not like giving aspirin, where that can sometimes cause increased bleeding or things like that. The arnica won't cause increased bleeding. It will just help to decrease the pain and inflammation and speed up the recovery. So you can never go wrong giving like a dose of arnica, for example, in an acute injury, even if the ambulance is on their way. Okay, so I wanted to go into some concepts on the essential information handout, which I call the user's guide to homeopathy. So I talk about, first of all, what to expect from homeopathic treatment. So we talked about, in an acute case, you should expect that a well-chosen remedy should affect the symptoms within either a few minutes or a few hours, or in the case of something that's been going on a little longer, or something that's more difficult to treat or stubborn, it might take a day or two. But when I say improvement, I'm just talking about a little bit of improvement. So if someone has poison ivy, you give a remedy, it's not going to go away within a few minutes, but the itching will start to get a little better within a few minutes or an hour or two, or the redness will get a little better, or the appearance of the skin, the symptoms that the person's feeling. So that's what you should expect. Malady or something that's been very well proven. So for me, I have it in the back of my mind, but it's really not necessary for being good homeopathic, for prescribing well. Okay, we should talk about the potential dangers of homeopathy. So if you take the remedy too often, and you run the risk of proving the remedy. So proving the remedy would mean developing the symptoms that you're taking the remedy for. So it's kind of like an aggravation that persists. So you take the remedy too often, you have this aggravation that persists so long, and then you keep taking the remedy. Now you're proving the remedy. You're starting to get all the symptoms of that remedy as if you were doing improving. So you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And if you think, oh, the doctor told me I should, if I get worse, to take it again, and you just keep taking it and you just keep getting worse, you run the risk of just to continue to get worse. And so you certainly don't want to do that.
If that were to happen, would you then find another remedy?
The best thing to do if it starts to happen is just to stop taking the remedy and just wait, because usually it's a good sign for most people that you've hit the right remedy, and if you just wait and do nothing, the aggravation will always be followed by an improvement. Okay? Sometimes you have patients who are so sensitive that no matter what remedy they take, they aggravate, even if it's not a remedy that's going to be particularly helpful to them. That's a special case. That's not that often. People who are that sensitive should probably be treated by professional homeopaths.